building our storyboards and we can understand the details and the purpose of all of these storyboards, let's look at some ideas that we can put our storyboarding tools into practice. Now, you're more than welcome to make and design your storyboards however you want. They are just really simple drawings. They're not animated in any way. You could take the supplied storyboard sheet and take it over in Photoshop and draw it over there, or you can just import it here and start to draw. It doesn't really matter. These are simple illustrations. They're not final, polished, finished pieces of artwork. They're designed to be something that only us, the story creators, are ever going to see. So the larger public and your audience is never going to see your storyboards. So you're more than welcome to create your storyboards however you'd like. They need to show up as a digital file, though, at the end of the day. And I like using Blender, because Blender has become just a wonderful extension of our creativity in this class. And the storyboarding tools inside of Blender are really no different than the animation tools that we've been working with the entire semester long. Now, I've gone ahead inside of Blender here, and I've drawn some things. It's good to point out from time to time that if you zoom out of your canvas inside of Blender, you get a really wonderful illustration of the frame itself. We spend a lot of time talking about the impact and the purpose of the frame. If you are animating in an environment or you're just drawing in an environment where you don't see the boundaries of your frame, you're really not going to get an impact and an understanding of the totality of the frame that your audience is seeing. We want to create our storyboard panels in the exact same environment that our audience is going to see them. So zoom out a little bit and design the entire frame in picture. That way you're placing your objects very directly. When you're working with the tools inside of Blender, it's a really great idea to create each one of your storyboard panels on their own frame. That way they're independent. You can work with them separately from the rest. In addition, we can also turn off the onion skinning, because sometimes that gets in the way. I've just gone ahead and added on frame 1 here a circle. Frame 2 is a square, and on frame 3 is just a silly little arc. If I return to frame 2 and go into my viewport properties, you can see that I've turned off my onion skinning. Sometimes when you're doing storyboarding or individual images inside of Blender, those onion skinned frames kind of get in the way. They kind of occlude our understanding of the thing that we're trying to draw. So I like to turn them off when I'm storyboarding. That way each individual image is a container that I can focus on specifically. When you're done making your storyboards, and you can do this with all of the drawing tools that we've been looking at this entire semester inside of Blender. They're really quite good. But when you're done, time your storyboard panels out. The cool thing about working in a timeline-driven environment is that we now can start to prototype and storyboard a sense of time. At the moment, I have 3 drawings on 3 different keyframes. When I hit the play button, bloop, of course, naturally, they're going to be played back three frames very quickly on our timeline. 24 frames a second, so this is now 1/8 of our timeline. 1/8 of a second. So I want that to be a little bit more. And this is the cool thing about working with a timeline, is that we can experiment with both the timing of it and the structure of it. Perhaps when I'm looking at this, I say, you know what, I really want to see this circle, or I want to see this shot for 1 second. Well, I can just simply move the other keyframes down in my timeline, and I can continue to experiment with time. I can start to flush out our audience's understanding of how long it is that they're going to need to see this image to consume it. This is a tricky part for us as content creators when it comes to our storyboards. You're the author of these storyboards. You know that image better than anyone out there, right? Because you physically drew all the shapes and all the characters within inside the frame. You know what's going on. Our audience, though, is seeing it for the first time. How long do you need to keep that image on screen in order for our audience to truly see, comprehend, and understand what you've created? The Blender timeline is a fantastic environment for us to experiment with that and get a good, solid understanding of how long we're going to hold all of these shots. Now, I just made my timeline 48 frames here, and I'm just going to grab this and I'll move it around. Maybe I'll put my second drawing here at frame 24. And then the third one we'll put out here at frame 40. So I can very quickly go in and start to understand the timing of all of this. I can start establishing a total duration. This is critical information for us as animators because now this basic framework of how long each of these shots is going to last is going to translate into a framework for the movement, because we're going to have to go in and create keyframes that are going to be timed out with inside that duration as well. So we're starting to lay the foundation for a very complex animation right here inside of Blender. And luckily, it's super easy. We're just dragging keyframes around inside of our timeline. In addition, this is the part that I really enjoy. It gives us an opportunity to experiment with story structure. For example, maybe we want to start with the circle, but as I go through the animating and storyboarding process, I say, I really like to have the arc be the second shot. Well, at this stage, I can simply swap the keyframe's location inside of my timeline and completely restructure the entire animation. The entire narrative has been swapped. This would be very difficult to do at the conclusion of our animation sequence. If we answer those questions now and we explore the structure of our story pretty early on, it gets a whole lot easier, a whole lot faster. So working inside of Blender has its advantages. It allows us to very quickly use the drawing and digital toolset inside of the application to create our storyboards. We can very quickly experiment around with the timing of each one of these shots and also change the structure of our keyframes to establish a different visual narrative.